Welcome to the Invite Health podcast, where our degreed healthcare professionals are excited to offer you the most important health and wellness information you need to make informed choices about your health. You can learn more about the products discussed in each of these episodes and all that Invite Health has to offer at www.invitehealth.com/podcast. First-time customers can use promo code podcast at checkout for an additional 15% off your first purchase. Let's get started.
Magnesium is a tonic for your brain, and this is no surprise because magnesium is a mineral that's key to your health. It's very safe, and it's key to brain health and wellness. So magnesium is involved in over 300 important activities in your body, and here's just a few of them. And many of these have to do with brain health, regulating your blood pressure, regulating your heart rate, regulating your blood sugar, releasing energy from food, but also sleeping at night. It's important for nerve conduction. It's important for your muscle function. It's important for your immune system. It's important for calcium regulation, which blends right into anxiety and stress, and we'll talk about that, but also for bone health. Magnesium, there's only a very tiny content of magnesium in your bones, but it's really important because it seals the calcium into the matrix of your bone. And if you lack magnesium, the crystals in your bone increase and your bone becomes more friable. In other words, it can snap easier. In other words, it's easier to break your bone. So lacking magnesium, no good for your bones. It's also needed for activating vitamin D. Now, how does that play into the brain? I mean, vitamin D is important for so many things in the human body, but if you lack vitamin D activity, because you need magnesium to activate vitamin D, if you lack vitamin D activity in the brain, it increases your risk of dementia. Magnesium is also key to regulating the release of important neurotransmitter chemicals in your brain. We know of about 100 neurotransmitters in the brain, and they control a little splash of these chemicals released from your nerve cells in your brain is important for your memory, for everything to do with your brain. You know the name of some of these, like serotonin and melatonin and dopamine and norepinephrine, epinephrine, glutamate and GABA. These neurotransmitters in your brain, they're involved with learning, memory, solving problems, stress, anxiety, depression, addiction, sleep, awake, brain metabolism, attention span and focus, brain energy. So low magnesium intake is linked to fatigue, stress, anxiety, depression, and insomnia. In fact, very new research, and this is what triggered me to write this podcast and perform this podcast episode, very new research from the University of Leeds, that's in the UK, that's in England, shows how certain foods, a good diet, a particular diet, and the mineral magnesium reduce feelings of stress, anxiety, and depression. So hi, my name is Jerry Hickey. I'm a nutritional pharmacist. I'm a licensed pharmacist. Welcome to my episode, Magnesium. It's helpful for a healthy, balanced, and happy brain, a well-functioning brain. My specialty, by the way, is nutrition. So welcome to the episode. You can find all of our episodes, by the way, for free, wherever you listen to an episode, or just go to invitehealth.com/podcast. You can also find Invite on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Invite Health. First, let's make our case for the safety of magnesium. Magnesium is a macro mineral. In other words, you need it more than the micro minerals. A micro mineral might be selenium and copper and manganese and minerals like that. Macro minerals you need more of, like potassium, sulfur, magnesium, calcium, to name a few. And it's involved in over, like I said before, 300 different important processes in the body. And it's extremely safe. It's very safe. Magnesium from food and magnesium supplements are incredibly safe. So drugs to treat depression can have side effects. Now that doesn't mean magnesium can replace them, but magnesium sure can help with depression. So can other supplements. We'll go into that later. And magnesium's safe to take with your antidepressant. In fact, it's a very good idea. Unlike the benzodiazepine drugs that treat anxiety, magnesium is extremely safe. An example of a benzodiazepine which would help anxiety and stress would be Valium, which is diazepam. There are some forms that act as a stool softener, and that's because they're not well absorbed, like magnesium sulfate, magnesium chloride, magnesium oxide would have a stool softening effect. It would act like a laxative. It'd be a safe thing to take, don't get me wrong, but it's a stool softener. So, and that's because they're absorbed slowly, so they're doing things in the intestines. They're changing pressure gradients in the intestines. So if you don't want that laxative effect, take magnesium glycinate. It's a very good dosage, and it's absorbed really well, and it's my go-to magnesium. Unless it's in balance with calcium, then you can use any kind of magnesium, especially magnesium citrate. But now let's get back to mental health. Anxiety is a very common illness. I'm sure the figures are higher than what I'm quoting. You know, we've got all this stuff going on. There's still that COVID thing going on, and there's a war over in the Ukraine, and there's been problems with inflation, and politics has gotten ridiculous. So a lot more people are anxious than what would normally be. But anxiety is very common. Generally, anxiety affects well over 30% of Americans at some point, and I'm sure today that figure is much higher. So let's do a little tutorial. I'll keep it nice and neat on what's going on with stress and anxiety and even depression and the mineral magnesium. There's a system in the brain that runs through the brain. It's a system. It's not a spot. It's called the limbic system. It's involved with different things. It's involved with addiction. It's involved with fear. It's involved with reward, which is the opposite of addiction. It's very strongly involved with emotion, and it's a key structure that interacts with our hypothalamus. Now, our hypothalamus is towards the back lower part of the brain. It's an ancient part of our brain. It's an ancient structure. And the hypothalamus interacts with the brain and connects basically the brain to the body. The hypothalamus interacts with the anterior and posterior pituitaries, and this regulates the interaction between our brain and the hormones in our body and our nervous system. So when we become alarmed, our hypothalamus in the brain triggers the release of hormones from our adrenal glands. Our adrenal glands are commonly called our stress glands, but they do more than that. They balance our blood volume and electrolytes, like potassium, magnesium, sodium chloride, calcium, etc. So they do. The adrenal glands do a lot more than this, but they also release stress hormones. Stress hormones are needed to get you away from danger or to help with inflammation, etc. But, when you become alarmed and there's an improper release of these stress hormones, especially when it's continuous, which we would call chronic, it's a very bad thing. So when you become alarmed, the hypothalamus triggers the release of hormones from our adrenal glands. The adrenal glands are these little triangular glands that sit atop each kidney. And these are hormones like cortisol and epinephrine. In England and the UK, they call epinephrine adrenaline, like the adrenal glands, and norepinephrine, which is noradrenaline. And between the cortisol and these other neurotransmitters, you're squeezing your blood vessels and making your blood pressure zoom so you could get more blood to the brain and the muscles to get away from danger, because that's what the fight or flight system is. That response is to get you away from danger. So your blood vessels are squeezing, your heart rate's increasing, more blood's reaching the brain, but the brain's going to need more energy, the muscles are going to need more energy. So not only is your blood pressure going up, but your blood sugar is going up, so there's available energy for your muscles, etc. Now, the release of the epinephrine, especially the adrenaline, is for the fight or flight response. All of these organs we're talking about right now, they require the mineral magnesium. So how does magnesium enter into this? Magnesium is needed for reducing chronic feelings of fight or flight. In other words, being alarmed, being stressed, being anxious. because magnesium is needed in the brain to release certain neurochemicals that we call neurotransmitters. Small splashes of these have profound effects on the brain and the body. Serotonin is kind of like a feel-good neurotransmitter. It helps you with stress, but it also helps control your appetite, by the way. Dopamine's a feel-good neurotransmitter, but it's also involved with controlling your balance and your mobility and your muscle function. So the magnesium helps reduce feelings of stress and anxiety, and it helps assuage depression. So when the stress does occur, the body releases stress hormones. This triggers the magnesium in our blood to enter into our cells, and there's a reason for that. The cells need a lot of energy during these situations so that they can transform sugar into energy. This causes magnesium in your blood to drop. This can affect your blood pressure, your blood sugar, your heart rate. This also causes a release. This also causes a drop in the release of the calming neurotransmitters in your brain, like gamma aminobutyric acid. We'll go into that in a minute. So the problem is, if you're already low in magnesium because of your diet or you're not taking a supplement, you release more stress hormone, making your response to a stressful situation much more intense. But the lack of magnesium also allows inflammation and free radical production to climb in your cells, damaging your cells and your organs and tissues and accelerating the aging process. So what does magnesium do in your brain? It balances two key neurotransmitters that are involved with relaxing the brain and exciting the brain. GABA, which is inhibitory, and glutamate, which is excitatory. But these are also needed for learning and problem solving. So the magnesium balances the GABA with acetylcholine and glutamate for learning, memory, problem solving, calming down the brain, exciting the brain when appropriate. So you really need the magnesium. But it also activates vitamin D. You could have plenty of vitamin D, but if it's not activated, you have a higher risk of developing dementia. Magnesium also lowers CRP. This is really important. CRP stands for C-reactive protein. It's released from the liver when you're inflamed, so it's a proxy for inflammation. We don't know if CRP does anything other than to tell us that we're inflamed. It probably does something, but nobody could figure it out yet. But CRP is much higher in people with depression. So magnesium lowers CRP. It lowers that inflammation that would further confuse the brain. You know, when somebody's depressed, it's not just like they're missing one neurotransmitter like serotonin. The entire terrain of the brain is not working well. So it's not like you put a brick back in a wall and you fixed a wall. The actual foundation of the wall is no good. So magnesium helps restore a proper foundation in the brain, and that's one reason why it's helpful with anxiety, depression, stress, etc. Now, you need magnesium to release melatonin. Now, people think of melatonin for sleep, which is true. It has something to do with sleep. But magnesium and sleep also allow you to build bone. Also are needed for your immune system. Melatonin is so important for the immune system that many cells have receptor sites for melatonin, like they do for vitamin D. So if lacking either melatonin or vitamin D, prevent your immune system from working well to fight off infections and cancer, etc. So there's magnesium, how key it is to good immune system balance and immune system regulation and immune system functions. But melatonin is also important for your digestive tract. You don't digest things well if you lack melatonin. It's needed for memory consolidation and learning. So melatonin is not released unless you have enough magnesium. All of your energy practically comes from a molecule called ATP. So all that sugar and protein and fat that you're converting into energy eventually creates something called ATP. It's called a nucleotide. And the ATP, adenosine triphosphate, releases a phosphate group. That's the energy. It's like lighting a match. And you have ADP, and it gets recycled again, so you keep on going. But without magnesium, you don't store the ATP. Most of the ATP is present as magnesium ATP, so you need magnesium for energy, just like you need magnesium for sleep. Magnesium is needed for the release of serotonin and dopamine, the feel-good hormones. And once again, dopamine is also important for balance and mobility. Serotonin is also important as a regulator for your appetite. And eventually, serotonin is processed into melatonin. So magnesium is really key here. You need magnesium for your nerves to work. You don't transmit anything from nerve to nerve, including in your brain, without magnesium. Magnesium is needed to reduce brain inflammation. Magnesium is needed for antioxidant protection in the brain. Magnesium helps regulate calcium. Calcium does many good things. You need calcium for energy. Without magnesium, calcium cannot start the energy process. But calcium, if there's too much of an influx of calcium during times of stress into your nerves, it's excitatory. So magnesium helps prevent that from happening. It helps prevent excessive excitation of the cells, but also, like I said, magnesium keeps calcium in your bones, so that's another reason why you need magnesium. Magnesium is an anti-stress supplement that's also good for anxiety and depression. Now, if you are stressed out, here's some other supplement that can help. Magnesium, yes, but also B vitamins, vitamin C, and an amino acid that comes from the tea plant called L-theanine, very good for stress. If you're anxious, you also need fish oils besides magnesium. L-theanine, once again, can help, but CBD, cannabidiol, helps with anxiety. Depression, you need B vitamins, you need magnesium, you need fish oils, but some more esoteric supplements can help, like biocurcumin is a well-absorbed form of turmeric, the complete plant that reduces inflammation in the brain, that's been shown to help with depression in general and memory in general, but also help antidepressants to work better, and also a supplement called Alcar, acetyl-L-carnitine. Alcar is a neurotransmitter in the brain for energy, but it also creates all these different neurotransmitters like GABA, glutamate, glutamic acid, etc., so on and so forth. So it's very good for helping people with depression, and it's very safe. It's very safe. Now, which foods have magnesium? I like to encompass the whole thing when I do these podcasts. So what are magnesium-rich foods? And let me say this, many Americans, I can't say most Americans, but many Americans do not eat enough magnesium-rich foods. So a good source would be salmon and halibut. Salmon being a little better because salmon is pink because it has astaxanthin, which is a fantastic antioxidant in your brain and eyeballs. There's a lot of protein in salmon. You've got phosphatides for good function of HDL protective cholesterol and muscle and nerve function, but also memory and protecting the brain because they're formed into plasmalogens, which act like a protective coating on your brain cell. So salmon has all this, but salmon also, of course, has the fish oils and the magnesium. Cocoa has magnesium. If you're going to do chocolate, you have to do really dark chocolate, but cocoa's better. It also has flavin-threols that help restore circulation to an aging brain for good memory and brain protection. It has phenylethylamine, salsolinol, theophylline, theobromine, and other nutrients and ingredients that are great for your brain without causing damage. They're also good for your heart. Avocados are also heart healthy. They help with your good cholesterol, etc. Almonds and cashews, which have other benefits. Beans, lentils, peas, all those legumes. So also tofu. They have, besides the different ingredients they have in them, like isoflavones to protect women's breasts to a little bit, and to protect men's prostate and to help protect the heart, they also have magnesium. So tofu falls in there also. Flaxseed and pumpkin seeds, they have magnesium, but you have to eat a lot of them. Whole wheat and oats. Now, some people can't have all whole wheat, but whole wheat also is connected to a lower risk of heart disease and colon cancer. Oats, of course, lower your cholesterol, and they're connected with heart health. Bananas. You got to watch the sugar in bananas, but bananas, besides having magnesium, also have potassium, a lot of potassium. They have vitamin C, they have some fiber. Green leafy vegetables like spinach, but I like the broccoli-type vegetables. They have glutathione precursors, which is a key antioxidant in your eyes, your brain, your heart, your liver, your kidneys, etc., your lungs, your red blood cells, your white blood cells. They have vitamin K1. They have vitamin D2. They have a little bit of calcium and strontium for your bones. They have some vitamin K, some potassium. They have a little bit of beta carotene. The broccoli vegetables versus like spinach type vegetables also have ingredients that are like anti-cancer, antiviral, anti-aging, like sulforaphane, indole-3-carbinol, and glucuronic acid. So these are good foods. I mean, this is why I try to eat these foods frequently. So who needs a little bit more magnesium? Athletes, they use it up quickly, and people who do a lot of exercise like myself. Emotional people, because they drain their magnesium very quickly. Anyone who has an injury, a chronic illness, or an infection can use more magnesium. People with stress, people with anxiety, people with depression, people with migraines, it helps with migraines. There's several nutrients that can help with migraines, like magnesium, riboflavin, which is vitamin B2, fish oils. Type A personalities, they're always stressed out, they're always rushing around, they tend to be a little explosive sometimes, they need more magnesium. Type A personalities need more magnesium. Also diabetics. Magnesium interacts with vitamin D and zinc to release insulin and glucagon from the pancreas to control your blood sugar. But diabetics also need vitamin B1 for the transketolase activity to control your blood sugar. They also need vitamin C because they don't use it well. They need chromium and niacin to hold the insulin onto their cells to control the insulin. They need some calcium because their bones get hollowed out. They need ubiquinol because they can't make energy, and ubiquinol is key to making energy. People with high blood pressure can use more magnesium. People who've had a heart attack, especially older people and people on diuretics, we'll get into that in a minute as some bonus info. People with a noisy lifestyle, people in a noisy environment, like people who live in the city, people who live near major traffic, people who work in noisy factories, because noise depletes magnesium. Maybe that's one reason why noise is connected with depression and anxiety and stress and an earlier death, etc., and even memory loss. More than likely, people on diuretics and steroid drugs. I try to get about 400 milligrams a day. If I get more, that's okay. So here's some bonus info. And this is to do with the heart. But of course, the heart is intimately connected to your brain. It's 4,365 patients over the age of 69 who previously had a heart attack. Now, they were followed for over 12 years in general. So that's a well-powered study. There's lots of people, lots of time. It's in the journal Frontiers in Cardiovascular Medicine. That's from Wageningen University over in the Netherlands. So it's all good. It's a good study. And it's especially important for the older people. They need more. Older people need magnesium in general. They need a number of supplements. They have to make sure they're getting lutein and zinc and magnesium and several other supplements, because fish oils, because their levels drop with age. I've done podcast episodes on that. So a higher intake of magnesium, these are heart attack survivors over the age of 69. A higher intake of magnesium from food, from supplements, greater than 320 milligrams, reduced their risk of developing cardiovascular disease, but also reduced their risk of dying from cardiovascular disease by 28%, and reduced their risk of dying from all-cause mortality by 22%. What's all-cause mortality? Dying from any cause. Now, if they were on a diuretic, this was especially important. Having a good amount of magnesium in people over 69 with cardiovascular disease on a diuretic, like hydrochlorothiazide or furosemide or triamterene, reduced their risk of dying from cardiovascular disease by 45%. Now, I would add to that other supplements. They can help keep you alive if you've had a heart attack. Cocoa, ubiquinol, fish oils, B vitamins, they're all important, along with the magnesium. So I gave you a lot of info there. I hope you enjoy it, and it's very useful, practical information. Thanks for listening to our podcast episode. You can find all of our episodes for free wherever you listen to podcasts, and subscribe and leave a review if you could, because that helps. Or just go to invitehealth.com/podcast. You can also find Invite on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Invite Health. I want to thank you so much for listening. Hope to see you next time on the next episode of the Invite Health Podcast. Jerry Hickey signing off. Have a great day.